when Garland ISD contacted us about this event being booked there. There were security concerns with them, and so from that we began to work with the school district officials, Garland officials, and police department officials to set up a security plan for this event. The security concerns that they had was because of the top event and the speaker that they were having and issues that had been with those folks before.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard. Thanks for tuning in at the new time for the Steve Malzberg Show. This is hour number 2. We start now at 5 p.m. Eastern and 2 p.m. Pacific time. You know what happened by now yesterday down in Texas. It was shocking that what happened in Paris now came to our shores. Not shocking, but it did shake you up a bit, certainly. Thank God no one was hurt except the bad guys in this instance. And the man whose organizations were running it and co-sponsoring it, Robert Spencer, director of Jihad Watch and vice president of the American Freedom Defense Initiative, AFDI, is with us. And hello, sir.
Hey,
Always
great
good
to
to
be
see
here,
you.
Steve.
Thanks for coming in person. All right. First of all, how did you find out? I mean, what were you doing when the police said shots fired?
The event had just ended, as a matter of fact, and the people were milling around, and Breitbart came by and said that they wanted to do an interview with both Pamela Geller and me. And so they were starting, and Pamela was speaking to them. I was standing by, and suddenly one of our security team came in and said, shots have been fired, and we have to get you out of here. And they said the interview is over and hustled us both away and into a safe room. And then they took, I found out later, they took the crowd and put them in the auditorium, locked down the whole area of the city, not just the building.
They didn't know who was still out there.
They didn't know who was still out there. The two guys, they may have had explosives.
Right.
And there was talk, I don't know if it was ever confirmed, of an accomplice that had been in a nearby Walmart and that he had a grenade and so on.
Nothing that we've heard yet, no.
Yeah, but these things were all investigated at the time, and we all had to wait inside the building while that was going on.
And I was told by someone else who was in the previous hour, we led the show off with Katrina Pearson, and she said that you people were singing God Bless America, praying for the officer who you knew was hurt, and not showing any fear at all.
Yes, it was a wonderful thing. I actually did not witness that. That was the crowd, and they were off doing that. I heard about that later because Pamela Geller and I were off in a
safe house,
safe room, deep in the bowels of the building.
Boy. All right, now let's talk about that. First of all, we know that the two accomplices, and we know they're the ISIS influence reported and all that kind of stuff. This is no surprise.
No.
We've heard about terrorist camps, ISIS influence camps, by the border in Mexico, etc. But what gets me is it always comes down to this debate. Well, you have a right to that kind of free speech, drawing the cartoons of Muhammad, but should you do it? And I hearken back to when Rudy Giuliani was here in New York City as the mayor, and we, the taxpayers, were forced to finance, not just have it, but finance the Modern Museum of Modern Art exhibit, where they put a crucifix in urine, they put elephant dung on the Virgin Mary, and I didn't see anybody rioting or shooting people. So you know what? There's a problem with radical Islam.
Of course, Steve. And you know what was interesting about that time is that in those days, the New York Times and the Washington Post and CNN, they were all full of stories about how we have to defend the freedom of speech. And this may offend you, but the right to offend is an important part of the freedom of speech.
Not now.
They've completely forgotten all that now, absolutely. In an Islamic context.
Is it fear?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's a very great part of it. And it's also this idea that the Islamic advocacy groups, like the Hamas-linked Council on American Islamic Relations and others, they have put over on the American people for 12 years now, more since 9/11, 13 years, that it's racist and bigoted and hateful to resist jihad terror. And so people are afraid. They think, well, the Muslims are victims, and they're victims of Islamophobia and so on. Although, anti-Semitic hate crimes are 8 times more common than hate crimes against Muslims.
Just look at the FBI statistics.
Precisely.
That's what you're citing.
And so they're saying, but despite all that, the Muslims have this reputation, this aura that the mainstream media abets of being victims, and thus we can't speak about these things. We can't step on their toes because they're poor, downtrodden people. And so the effect is that we're enforcing Sharia. We're enforcing the blasphemy laws that say you cannot criticize Muhammad, you cannot say anything negative about Islam, or you'll be killed. And so we're saying, yeah, okay, we'll go along with that, which is the first step to the end of our freedoms.
And I like to use, I remember when Charlie Hebdo happened and people would say they shouldn't have done that, it was insightful, et cetera. And I would say, okay, what if Al-Qaeda or ISIS or both, and they start saying now, if you have a female president, or if you let women run for public office anymore, we're going to do the same thing we did at Charlie Hebdo. What would you say then? I mean, where do you draw the line once you say okay?
Precisely. Remember also, Charlie Hebdo, they killed Muhammad cartoonists. And then they came for us last night, and so it's our fault. But where else did they go? An accomplice of the Charlie Hebdo murderers
went to a kosher. Don't
so
tell it to Obama, though.
You can't offend Muslims by drawing cartoons.
Right.
You can't offend Muslims by being Jewish.
Right.
So where do you draw the line? How much are we going to give away of our freedoms for this?
Yeah. No, I mean, that's absolutely the point. Absolutely the point to hear people, bring up. I was watching CNN, and Pam was on with CNN, and Jake Tapper, although he was a little fairer than I thought their morning show was to her. So what is the future? I mean, what is the future? Are you gonna participate and organize more events like this around the country? I'm not asking you to tell me where and when, but are you going to be intimidated? Because Charlie Hebdo has been intimidated. The cartoonist who was the focal point of that attack said, "I'm not doing Muhammad cartoons anymore." So I mean, are you going to consider this is a risk of life and limb and say, "I'm backing off"?
Steve, the signers of the Declaration of Independence, they pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. Patrick Henry said, "Give me liberty or give me death." We have to do more now. We can't submit, we can't subjugate ourselves and show that violent intimidation works. That way we'll only get more of it.
So when you say do more, you mean more such events?
Yeah, we have to stand. We have to stand and show you're not going to frighten us into silence.
And what is the future of free speech in this country, do you believe? Because all the way from when Hebdo happened, it was all the way from the president on down. Yeah, freedom of speech. But, and you could go back to Carney when he was press secretary, I forget what the exact event was then, said similar things. But was it smart to do it? And there have been calls for, and you know this better than I, and you could probably cite who's done the calling, for instituting these restrictions on free speech if they're offensive, especially when it comes to Islam.
I think it's coming, Steve, and it's very dangerous. And that's one of the ways in which the left and the Muslim advocacy groups will try to exploit this event last night. But the reality is that these kinds of hate speech laws are inimical to the foundation of a free society. But they are coming, and they are coming. The problem with them is that who decides what's offensive?
Right.
I don't think that a cartoon of Muhammad is offensive, and I think a lot of the things that are being said by the Muslim groups are offensive.
Hey, Saturday Night Live.
Whoever has the power is the one who does that.
Saturday Night Live, within a year ago, ran a skit where Jesus, it was a fake trailer for a fake movie, Jesus Returns, and they had him as a bloodthirsty mass murderer with a machine gun mowing down people. Yeah. Now, but they would never do that about Muhammad or Islam because they're afraid, rightfully so, probably they're afraid, and I couldn't fathom they would do it. But who rioted? Who got killed? Where was the violence? There was none.
And if there are hate speech laws in the United States, nobody's going to be coming after Saturday Night Live for that Jesus skit. It will all be about clamping down on criticism of Islam, which will have the effect of enabling jihad terror to advance unopposed.
One quick point. You chose that site in Texas to have it because there had been an organization that held a protest or a rally there, basically supporting what happened to Charlie Hebdo.
Yes, Stand with the Prophet.
Yeah.
A Stand with the Prophet conference right after Charlie Hebdo, and they said, "Oh no, it didn't have anything to do with that. We scheduled it before." Well, then they should have canceled it out of respect, or made it a Stand for Free Speech conference in a recognition that they understood what it meant to be in a pluralistic society.
I can't thank you enough for being here.
Thank you.
Always great to see you and speak with you.
Likewise.
And God bless you for your perseverance and your bravery.
You too, Steve.
Right,
Thanks so much.
Thank you. All right, Robert Spencer, ladies and gentlemen. I'm a Jew. He's Christian. And I would assume most Muslims would agree with us, but we have a problem, folks. Next, the actor Eric Bogosian about the Armenian genocide. Don't go away.